Hey, the nurse told me where your office was. Got a quick second?
Yeah. You know, your taste in women has certainly changed.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair assessment. That's what happens when the right one gets away, though.
She got away?
She definitely did.
Look, I don't know where this is headed.
I was young, dumb, afraid, had a lot to learn. Something I still regret.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Why didn't you tell me you had a sickle cell trait? It doesn't matter now, but I can't help but wonder if knowing that would have made a difference.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't have sickle cell.
Well, I was waiting until I received all of KJ's results, but so far, it looks like he has sickle cell anemia.
Okay.
Look, the only way a child can have it is if the father at least carries the trait. Don't you think that's something I needed to tell my doctors?
Nikki, if I knew about that, I would have told you. I had no idea.
Nikki!
Hi. Hi, honey. I thought you were gonna text when you arrived.
I was gonna, but Kyle and I want to be romantic and bring these.
Oh, that's a surprise. That's so sweet. They're beautiful.
Sorry to interrupt your consult. My wife is a professional.
So that was a clip from our next guest, a movie called One Faith. And I just want to ask you guys out there, when you have that first love or that one that got away and you encounter them in a particular way, how do you deal with it? Do you think that when that person moves on, do you feel like that's karma, excuse me, is that a karma driven, when you feel like that person has gotten away, or do you feel like there are times where you have that experience where you feel like they got away and you don't experience that love again? Do you feel like that's your only chance at love? Do you feel like God will bless you with a second chance at that again? So kind of give your perspective based on that snippet alone, of how do you channel that? Have you ever experienced that? I think some of us has had that journey in our lives, that we had that one that got in the way and they come back into our lives to a certain capacity and they have moved on, whether in a relationship or whether in life, and you feel like spinning the block. Is it an option? Is it not an option? Do you feel like it's, certain things in that situation is meant to happen? Does fate present you to that purpose? So we could dive into all of that, but I'm just want to kind of give you a little bit of a reference point, or a few reference points to kind of dwell on, kind of let that sizzle in your spirit. Shout out to Country Wayne on that one. So again, that is a movie, One Faith, that is directed by our next guest. So I am so honored to have him on, and I appreciate him being able to take the time to sit with me in my little piece of platform. So I had to make sure that I have my bra on so I could be ready to present to you and introduce to others the incomparable Devon V. Collins. Here we go. And here he is in the building, Mr. Devon V. Collins, in the building with us, filmmaker and the owner and founder of STIMUli, that we're going to be talking about as well. And so thank you for being here, Mr. Collins.
Hey, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And I would say one thing, there's nothing little about your platform. I appreciate anybody that's willing to, get in front of people and, express themselves that way and share their thoughts with others. There's nothing little about that. So congratulations on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I try to be humble about it because we're getting there. We're getting there. Hopefully we'll kind of, kind of drive the people on. And I thank you so much for, like I said, just taking the time to do this with me. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we just saw a snippet of One Faith, and then we have, of course, a lot of us know who Romeo Miller is, but who was the actress?
Yeah. The actress that was Sheila Leeson. She is out of she's out of the Miami area, and she was absolutely fantastic in that role. So
Yes. And who was the actor that played the husband and the stepson?
That was actually one of, believe it or not, that was actually one of my fraternity brothers in Alpha Phi
Really?
Alpha. Yeah, I know. Believe it or not. Yeah.
Wow.
Believe it or not. Yeah, that was he was one of my SANs, one of my line brothers, and his name is Brian Spangler. So
shout out to all of them. Yes,
yeah,
shout out
absolutely.
to all those actors. Yes. And so I also want to get into, Devon, before we get into your backstory, what was the premise of One Faith? What drove you to that piece?
Yeah, so I even feel funny talking about it because my partner in crime, Diane Rhines, is actually the executive producer, creator, and writer for that film. That project has been with her for a long time, and we've talked about that project for a long time. And I've known, I call her Miss Diane. I've known Miss Diane for a number of years now, just through mutual friends. And she really, really did an amazing job putting this piece together. And we are in the process now of looking at what is going to be the next iteration of that project. So we plan to bring all of the characters back for probably what's going to be more of a season scripted piece. So I'll definitely keep you informed about how that project is moving along, because we've gotten some really, really good response.
Oh, so you guys, okay. So you have a good rollout so far.
Oh yeah. It's
wonderful.
The feedback has been amazing, far beyond anything that we could have imagined. So that just, as us independent filmmakers, that just pushes us to see what the next level of this project is going to be. So, we're looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Yes, so please let me know when that, when you doing this promo, please keep me in mind when it comes to the promo stuff. I really would appreciate that, because I do want to do more of that. I do want to push more product out there. So and that's why I was hoping to keep me in mind, so yeah. So hopefully, that will come to pass, that we get, together again for that purpose. But thank you for sharing that. But let me get the premise of the movie itself, though, your perspective on the premise of that movie itself and the content of the movie.
Yeah. So it really just kind of follows, at the heart of it, three siblings that are going through different moments in their lives. So you have Keith, Karen, and Kim. And they, Karen is the oldest. Keith is obviously the brother that they protect. And it's a very realistic, everyday, I would say, look into a family that is dealing with, a number of issues. Just in that clip that you showed there, Keith, his son, exhibited the sickle cell trait.
Yes.
So, we touch on, a lot of issues that affect the African-American community.
Nice.
Yeah. And then we also, and then, it's, the piece is great. The way that Diane wrote it was that not only do we explore the subject, but we look at how the family is dealing with that particular subject individually, also as a kind of a communal approach. So it's a very, very well written piece. And
Yes.
I was so blessed and honored to be a part of it.
Yes, and it was great watching. I did see it a few days ago,
That's
and
great.
so yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
that's how I reached out to you. That's why I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, let me see who directed this. Oh, let
Yeah.
me reach out to Mr. Collins. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
like that. Yes, and so now I want to get more into who Devon Collins is. And it starts from
Sure.
the beginning. And I love to target them. I love to get people at the beginning. I love to hear the backstories. I love to hear the childhood memories. I
Sure.
love to hear because it gives me some nostalgic feelings. Because when I spoke to my last guest, Isaiah David Paul, he was talking about the BET shows, like we was talking about reminiscing about those shows that we used to have back in the day, like Midnight Love, 106 in Park,
Yeah.
Six. Remember? I don't know if you remember that animated.
Yeah.
Person. Yeah. So and then we talk about like the childhood, the games, the games you used to play and the TV
Mhm.
shows you used to watch. And I want you to get into that, Devin. Is it Devin or Devon, by the way?
No, it's Devon. Yeah, you had it
Devin.
right.
Okay.
Yep, it's
All
Devon.
right. I'm just checking.
No, yep,
Okay. So,
yep.
yeah. So I want to get more into your backstory, Devin. Where were you born and raised? Is Ohio?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, actually. So
Oh, you
yeah.
from? Oh, that's when one of my favorite singers is from. Howard Hewitt. One of my
Yeah,
that's my
yeah.
favorite.
Okay, so
Yeah.
here's a little backstory. Howard Hewitt lived right down the street from me on
Yeah.
Peerless. So
Really?
so we're both from the west side of Akron. We both lived on the same street. Now, he's much older than I am, but his parents, after he went on to fame, his parents still live down there on the
They did.
corner, man. And I
Yes.
remember they had
But,
these two.
yeah.
I remember they had these two big Rottweilers, man, that would
Ooh.
chase us up and down the street, man.
Oh my goodness.
It was something else. But yeah, I grew up in my early childhood years on the west side of Akron, and it was great. When I started getting into middle school, that's when I moved to a suburb called Copley, and then I went through the school system there, graduated from Copley High School and whatnot, and then I went on to college at Ohio University. So
Okay.
yeah, and I did
Yeah.
and I did 4 years down there, and and that was a whole experience. I really grew up. I really grew up at that school. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So your roots are in Ohio. So I do
Yeah.
want to let me go back a little bit. Back,
Sure.
like I said, back to the childhood again, because like I
Yeah.
said, I want to get some of those nostalgic. I mean,
Yeah.
what TV shows you watch? Did you watch Saturday morning cartoons? Did you, did you dig the toy out the cereal box? Did you have bologna sandwiches with the,
Yeah.
with the slice, at the end, or did you
Yeah.
have grits and eggs, grits and cheese? I mean,
Yeah.
I just want to get into, or some people have well-to-do backgrounds where
Yeah.
they did not, they use regular bubble bath instead of lemon fresh joy. I mean, they
Yeah.
had those type of privileges.
Yeah.
They had like they had the color TV. They had all that stuff. So I want to get more into your childhood memories. What some of your key takeaways that you like that really stuck with you?
Yeah.
Siblings, cousins.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So interesting fact. I'm an only child, and I don't have any first cousins.
Really?
Yeah. So I got particularly on my mom's side, it's a lot of only children on that side.
Really?
And yeah, so yeah, what's interesting, both of my parents, my dad passed away in 2005 of colon cancer. But both of my parents are educated, and were educated, and they after they had did some brief work kind of through just kind of some various locations, they settled on moving back to Akron. So my dad is actually from Akron. My mom was actually born in Brooklyn, New York. So there's a whole story with that.
Yeah.
But
So how did that connection end up happening? I'm curious how that connection happened.
So so what's interesting is that my dad, like I said, was born in Akron. So when both of my parents went to Ohio University, so where I went. So and they met down there. So my dad was an Alpha, my mom was a Delta, and they met at Ohio University. And then they kind of lived in a couple different areas for a little while. But they settled back in Akron because my dad's parents were there, my grandfather and grandmother were there, and my uncle was there. And so that was really, you know, my dad, my mom, my grandfather.
That background.
We had some really old cousins that lived off across the street from us on Peerless. They were, that was just kind of like my nucleus. And so, you know, growing up an only child, man, you know, you have to have an imagination just to, kind of stay sane in a while, in a sense. And so, you know, man, I created all types of characters, in the backyard. It was,
you're not the only one, because Omega Key, shout out to her. She said the same thing.
Yeah.
She had characters, and she had, she was just having these voices in her head that that played out. Yep. So
So you really found things to just kind of keep yourself busy. But yeah, I mean, my parents, my mom ended up going down to Ohio University. She was actually going to be a doctor because my grandfather, her father, was a gynecologist in Manhattan. And so and so we, early on, my early childhood and even getting into some of my teen years, we used to go there on the summers and visit my grandfather and his wife and so on and so forth. So, but it was interesting because, like I said, my mother was born in Brooklyn, and her grandmother actually lived in St. Louis. And so my grandmother, my mother's mother, was actually taking a trip to St. Louis from Brooklyn. My mom, because my grandmother, my mother's mom, was a nurse in New York.
Wow, you come from some good. You come from
and so a lot of education. And so, my grandmother went to go visit, wanted to go visit her mom. And so they took a trip and they drove all the way from New York to St. Louis. Now, on the way back from St. Louis to New York, her car broke down in Cleveland. And at this point, my grandmother was a single parent and whatnot, and her car broke down in Cleveland. And so the mechanic, James, ended up being her husband for like over 40 years. And a stepfather to my mother. And so my mom grew up actually in Cleveland. So she did, she went to school there, and she lived a little bit in St. Louis, but she, Cleveland, she went to high school. And so then she went to Ohio University from Cleveland. And then my dad, actually he graduated from the West Side High School, Buchtel, John R. Buchtel, and he went down to OU, and so that's how they met. So it's just by happenstance, that, because if her car hadn't broke down, she would have gone back to New York,
Wow, see, there goes that fit I was just talking about.
Yeah, that's that. That's kind of how the universe plays. But yeah, man. I mean, so my parents worked a lot. My dad was in human resources, and so he worked at a lot of hospitals, training people there to be managers and directors in certain departments. And so, and then my mom kind of was the creative, probably that's probably where I get a lot of the creative side. From her, because she was a, she loved, both of my parents love music, but she was a disc jockey in Washington.
What type of music? Let me give me some. Oh yeah, you see now that's music to my ears. Okay, so what kind of music? Come on, give me some stuff.
Right, so now here's the other thing about the music. Now my dad was a drummer, and my dad was a professional drummer.
Wow.
And so he played with he went on tour with the Emotions. He
Ooh.
played with Isaac
Yeah.
Hayes.
Yes.
And at that time, Stax was the record label, and so
Mm-hmm.
he played with a lot of those artists. And so the music that I grew up on was a little bit different. I always call it kind of like music for musicians. So I grew up listening to a lot of Stanley Clarke, Billy Cobham,
Yes.
a lot of Spyro Gyra. I grew
Well
up listening
rounded.
to I grew up listening to Kim Pencil. I grew up listening to Dave Weckl. I grew up listening to just a bunch of kind of fusion jazz artists, just like musicians, and that carried with me all the way through college and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's just I had such a wealth of family.
Yeah, you did. I mean, that's amazing.
From a lot of aspects that I was really, really blessed with. Well, my parents got divorced when I was maybe about 9 or so, something like that. And so I ended up living with my dad. So my dad raised me from about that age on. And that was really special. We really had a really, really good relationship.
That is
my dad was very steady. He was very objective. He was very, it is what it is kind of, I mean, so, and him being a single parent, my grandfather was, kind of like, because my grandfather at that time, was retired. And so he was the one that was picking me up from school, taking me to basketball practice, or picking me up from basketball practice, and taking me to whatever appointments I needed to take to go to while my dad was at work. So my grandfather and my uncle were very instrumental in filling in that gap in terms of being a resource to for my dad to lean on to help get me to where it was that I needed to get to. Because my grandfather was great. He taught me how to drive. He taught me how to shoot a shotgun. He taught me how to cut grass. He taught me how to ride a bike. I mean, I absolutely just adored that guy. And he actually ended up dying in his sleep. He was 90 years old. The first month that I went to college. So it was almost kind of like God said that, hey, you've done your job.
Yes, and, absolutely. Definitely did.
That guy is off now. So, so you can rest. And so, but I had such I was blessed to have just such a good, crop of men.
That is a blessing.
That really instilled, a lot of, hard work, values, and morals, and no excuses type of type of thing. So I was very blessed from that standpoint. But yeah, and it's funny, kind of to your point too. When I lived on the West Side, we had some older cousins in the family that lived across the street from us, Aunt Molly and Cousin Jane. And so, when you talk about the sandwiches and stuff, I mean, I would go over there, I would make a meat patty, man, pour that, put that thing on some Wonder Bread where the ketchup would bleed through.
That's what I'm talking about. Wasn't it the best?
Oh my God.
The lettuce and tomatoes.
Yeah. She had
you read my mind.
Yeah, it is funny too, because my Aunt Molly used to love fruitcakes. And those things were just the nastiest things, man. I mean, but she just absolutely loved it. I mean, there was just, that was kind of like my home away from home. And, they watched me a lot when I was little. And, I mean, I'm telling you, when the milkman used to come,
You had a milkman?
Yeah, we had a milkman. I know. We had a milkman that came, and the milkman would come. She would get, like a carton of 2%. I would, try to, see if I could get some Neapolitan ice cream off the truck. I mean, it was that kind of. It was that kind of,
yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes,
it was.
I'm so glad you put up those memories. This nostalgic memory. Yes, that's what I was talking about. I enjoy those.
Yeah, it was a great thing. And you know, that back then on the west side of Akron, um, they we really knew our neighborhood. And so we were cool with everybody on the neighborhood. We knew all the adults knew us. And so it was a very communal situation.
Yes,
We
I
used to
love
play
it.
kickball in the streets and all kinds of
Yes.
stuff. We used to ride our bikes all around west side of Akron. And it was just a great place to really grow up, you know. And I missed it when I left. But I was always kind of coming back, you know, seeing my friends there. But man, I just, I absolutely love that neighborhood growing up, you know.
Yeah, I could tell. And
Mhm.
and I love that for you, Devin. I mean, the way you've been able to have such a male presence that not a lot of us had. As I was
Sure.
talking about this in one of my videos when I was for Father's Day, and I was kind of reminiscing about my dad. Rest in peace to him. He died a few years ago,
Okay.
and so we had more of a connection in my adult years.
Oh, okay.
I always
Okay.
wanted to be a daddy's girl. I always wanted to be a
Yeah.
daddy's girl
Yeah.
because I think that, and I told my dad this one time, and I told him a few times. I was like, believe it or not, Dad. I mean, a lot of people, we always talk about boys eating their fathers. We need you too. We need our
Yeah,
fathers
man.
too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm so glad that you were able to have that type of experience with your father and grandfather. Anyone else in the community that you were able to pull from. So how
Yeah.
was your relationship with your mom, at that time? Was
Yeah,
it
my relationship with my mother was great. My mom moved. She ended up moving to Michigan, to Saginaw, actually, and so I would go up there and visit her for a number
That's
of
the second
years.
person that said Saginaw, Michigan. I ain't think I have
Yeah,
anybody else say
yeah,
Saginaw, Michigan.
Saginaw. Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
because
Yeah.
I interviewed with a person, Calvin Michaels. Shout out to him. He said
Okay.
Saginaw. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm thinking he'd be the only one that I would
Yeah.
encounter from
Yeah.
Saginaw. Okay, but
Yeah.
I stand corrected, Devin.
Yeah. No, so she lived in Saginaw for a while. Then she ended up
Yeah.
moving to Richmond and working in city government in Richmond and in Washington, D.C. for probably about 35 years. So, so she recently moved back to Ohio, where I am. And she came here in 2020. So we've been hanging out and kind of catching up and stuff like that. So that's been great. She just shout out to my mom. She just had a birthday
Happy birthday, Mom.
on Monday, and
this past Monday.
Yep, this past Monday. So we celebrated and hung out for a little bit. So it was great. So yeah. So she's she's around and doing well. Yeah.
Oh, God bless her.
Yeah, absolutely.
God bless all of you. I mean, this is amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Because that's why, and this is, you see why I like to get, this, or the backstory, because it's just really, because, it's like, I may resonate with some of it, but not all, but at least I'm able to get a feel of who, made you who you are. It had, like I said, I had to start somewhere. You was molded, from somewhere, and so now it makes sense. Now it makes sense to how you became the phenomenon that you are. So we're going to get more.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
As well. No, absolutely. Very, very very truthful. So I want to get more into I love to hear about the elementary and junior high school phase of it all, because we don't really talk about it as much. I guess we feel like that's just part of the growing up. You have to go to elementary, junior high school, and we don't understand the level of self-discovery that comes with that. We don't understand the pivotal step comes with that. So you understand where I'm coming from. You see where I'm going with this, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I always like to get that. I like to get your personal experience from like the type of social skills you develop. Was you a shy kid? Were you a popular kid? You had to deal with the acne, the puberty, humping on the staircase. Maybe
That's wild.
So I love seeing that. So you have to sneak to the store sometimes to get some snacks. I mean, just those type of things that were you a part of any clubs, or did you own your creativity at that time? Like, I want to get more of junior, elementary and junior high school.
Yeah. Well, I was yeah, so all through high school, you know, I was I was a big music guy. So you know, like I said earlier, my dad played the drums, and so naturally I ended up playing the drums as well.
Yeah, real quick,
And
Devin.
yeah,
Real quickly, I don't know if you're able to see the comments. So can you
yeah.
please wave and say hello?
Hey.
Hello. David. All right.
That's
So
what's
yeah, you
up.
say you play the drums.
Yeah. So I played the drums all through middle school and high school. So I was in the band. I played basketball as well. And so, you know, it was interesting because, you know, like I grew up on the west side of Akron, which is, you know, a predominantly Black neighborhood, still is. You know, but I was always I went to elementary school over there in that neighborhood. And my parents were like, nah, that's it for that. I went there 1 year, like my first grade year. Then from second grade, I was at a private school downtown Akron. And
Okay.
until I got to the Copley school system in middle school. So, you know, I was always in, you know, a different world, so to speak, you know. So there wasn't a moment where I grew up where, you know, I was just, you know, where I didn't, you know, where there were environments that felt odd to me, you know. So when I got to high school in particular, which was a predominantly white high school, you know, that was what that was. And you know, like I said, I was a pretty popular kid. So you know,
Are you talking about junior, elementary, junior high? What you talking about?
I was talking, well, actually probably both, but you know,
Okay.
yeah, but you know, I was a pretty popular kid. And so, you know, I was on, you know, student government, you know, I
Nice.
got on, you know, I was on a couple, you know, of those social courts, Valentine courts and all that stuff. So, you know, you know, you know, I really enjoyed, you know, just kind of my friends and my classmates, you know, really in high school at that time. And I remember, you know, in high school though, you know, they didn't have a program for Black History.
I'm not
And
surprised.
I remember my senior year, you know, a couple of us really kind of fought to get that recognition in the school. And that was there was a class that was you know, it was kind of like a TCOM class, like a, you know, like a video class and whatnot, where you and it wasn't, you know, you know, it hadn't been around that long. And so that was, you know, I started making material, Black history material in that class
Really?
for the school to recognize Black History Month.
Devin, do me a favor. Can you kind of, if you can remember, can you please kind of share with us what, you know, what the process was and what did you piece together? I'm interested in that.
Yeah. So which was interesting. So I think at the time I think we had I remember me and my buddy Jay, we had put together some clips around Martin Luther King. We had done some stuff on just kind of the civil rights movement, the bus boycott. So we were really kind of doing some research that we weren't really being taught in school, right? And you got to understand too, this was around the time where, if you think about in music, this was like the early 90s. So this was around the time when you had acts like Public Enemy, X-Clan, Ice Cube had come out with America KKK's Most Wanted. And he had a cousin named, I think his name was Cam or something like that. And he was like part of the Nation of Islam. So there was a lot of like Black, there was a lot of, you know, stand-up Black music that was coming out. And also too, the movie Malcolm X had come out with Denzel. And so, you know, I started getting into, you know, and this was all because my high school didn't have wasn't recognizing Black History Month.
What high
And so
school did you go to? Because you
I went to Copley High School, and it was a suburb of Akron. Yeah,
okay.
graduated in '93 there, and so that was really interesting because I started learning about Black empowerment and everything that surrounds that, and so it was interesting. So from our year, and that was like my senior year, I think that we did that. And so for the following years, they did end up recognizing Black History Month. And so it was,
wow. So you a pioneer. You basically made Black history, Devon. So that's why I didn't want to gloss over that. I didn't want to gloss over that. I felt we missed if I did. So so God bless you on that because
so we really did that.
That was an innovative, very that's something very important. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that.
Yeah, and that was great too because that carried right on over to college. And college was when
college? Because I want to make sure that we establish a timeline. That's why I'm trying to go in certain order. So you said, but I want to get more before we get into college, Devon. I want to get more into your high school journey because you ain't reminiscing enough. I ain't getting enough memories. I want more. I want. Matter of fact, let me go back to junior high school, Devon. I want to know. Did you hump in the staircase, Devon?
No, I wasn't humping the staircase. No, I wasn't doing that. It was I mean, but and that was the thing, man. You always have a couple girlfriends and
you started dating then
and stuff like that.
You started having little girlfriends. You have parties, back in the day, and you had to be good. When you really good, you get a nice little snack. I remember back in the day, it was pretzel sticks for us, pretzel rods. Those pretzel rods, you to that. Or we get the actual pretzel, like the big pretzel.
Yeah. We used to have like these little teen dance halls. And so every Friday night, and Saturday, we used to go to these, to these teen dance halls and whatnot. And I think one was called Confetti's. I think that was one. And then there was another one that, laser tag was big back then, right? And so the laser tag folks weren't really making enough money doing laser tag. So they had built this whole inside structure where you could kind of hide behind, walls and stuff like that. And so on the weekends, they turned that into a teen dance club.
Okay.
And the place was called Photons. And so we used to go up there on the weekends and we used to hang out and do our thing. And it was great, man. I mean, we used to take, girls in the back behind the walls and stuff like that, man. It got to be a mess, but that was okay because we were young and we were dancing and we were, doing what young folks do. But that was a good time. What was also interesting too was that in high school, early on in high school. So like I said, I was in the band at high school, right? So I was in the percussion section and whatnot. And I remember being on the west side. Me and my dad went over to my grandfather's one day and we heard we were just outside and we were talking and then we heard these drums, from a distance. And we were like, we heard these drums in the distance. And we went to try to find out where they were coming from. And so we found them. They were in this parking lot, and it was this kind of small to mid-sized Black drum corps that were, playing these drums, and it was echoing out through the whole community. And I was like, oh my God, I have found my people. You know what I'm saying? Like I was
going to try.
Like I had found my people. And so we went up to them and we were talking to a couple of the organizers. My dad was, and then they said, yeah, well, what can you, what do you play? And I said, well, I play snare. And so they put a drum on me. And so they said, hey, why don't you just fall in line and see if you can kind of learn, some of the, some of the sticking and this and that. I mean, that was just that was just on a humble. And of course, I didn't, you know, I mean, they could tell that I could play, but obviously I didn't know anything, you know, around that. But that one day ended up being 4 years of working, being a part of the youth group of Alcaf Temple 109, which was Black Shriners. Which were some Black Shriners in Akron, and you know they had temples all across the country, and that ended up being, so I ended up joining that youth group, and man, not only did we play in parades all over the city as a drum corps and flag team, but you know we traveled the country. That was the first time that I went to Los Angeles when I was like 16. It's the first time that I went to New Orleans. It's the first time that I went to Louisville, Kentucky. You know, first time I went to St. Louis, you know, so we really traveled the country, you know, competing in drum corps competitions, drum and drill team competitions. And it was absolutely fantastic. And it was one of the highlights, and I do mean the highlight, one of the highlights of my childhood.
Yes.
Because,
and that's why it's so important to keep the arts in the schools. You know, that's the first thing they cut. The first thing they want to cut is the arts.
The first thing they want to cut is the arts. Then they try to cut the sports. And you know, it was really important because, you know, these were, I mean, you know, this was a youth group. You know, this was a city youth group. So, you know, you had all types. You know, you had, you know, some kids that were in gangs. You had some kids that were selling drugs. You had some, they kind of looked at me as kind of like a square and whatnot. You know what I'm saying? But we were all family. And man, I mean, it was funny because one of my guys, Aaron, just put up a post. He had found an old picture of us in the group. And, you know, it was funny because when we used to do these parades, the crowd would follow us down the street. They would hear us coming and they would get excited.
Wow,
They would start cadences and they would get excited, and they knew Alcaf was coming down, man. And they would just follow us all the way down the street, man. I mean, we would mimic popular songs like Jodeci, Come and Talk to Me. And we would, you know what I'm saying? And we would, you know, just kind of
love it.
You know, it was Black, it was culture, you know, it was family, you know, it was community. It was just, you know, that it was us. And so, and what ended up happening was I ended up recruiting some of my classmates that were Black to Alcaf. So I was in it that first year, and then I said, "Hey, y'all need to come over and, you know, such and such."
You got to carry the torch.
Yeah. And so they came over too, and we went through Alcaf together, and they'll tell you the same thing, man. It was, you know, it was a great. Not only was it just a great childhood experience, it was a great Black experience.
Wonderful. And thank you for sharing that, Devon, because I think that musicianship, that's something that I love too. Like, you know, I'm not all that music inclined. I'm just a lover of music, but just when I hear the instrumentation of a song, the arrangement, the musicianship, it just, you know, it's just something that we just take for granted. It's so much we take for granted when it comes to the musicianship.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
And also, and Devon, I need for you to kind of vouch me on this one.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you have a lot of people that are singers that they refer to singers as musicians. They're not musicians if you don't play an instrument. They're artists, recording artists.
Nah, I have to disagree with that. I think singers are musicians. When you get with a really good singer that can, you know, when you get with
your voice. I know you're going to say your voice is your instrument. Is that what it is?
The voice is the instrument. And knowing how to control it, knowing how to breathe, you know, to make it sound, you know, what it needs to sound like.
Okay, I can get you on that.
You know,
I'm halfway there.
Yeah, being able to, you know, recognize pitches and mimic.
We still take it away from me. When I hear about musicians, I just think of like someone who plays instruments, you know.
Yeah, and those are musicians. But man, I tell you, man, you can do some if you listen to like some of those early Take Six albums, it's hard to say that those guys are just singers, right? So
No, I didn't say just. Don't.
No, I understand.
Don't put words in my mouth, Devin. You give me a trouble now.
It's hard to say. Yeah, it's hard to say that they're just.
I would never say just singing. Oh, I would never put
just
just in front of a singer. No, absolutely not.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but no, I get what you're saying, though. And when we hopefully you'll be able to catch my interview with a vocal coach that I'm going to have on in August, and we're going to discuss more of that.
That'd be great. Yeah, I follow your page now, so yeah. So it's
yes, please do. Yes, thank you so much. But but thank you, like I said, but thank you for sharing your experience as far as the instrumentation of it all. But I want to know, like, how were you able to manage your academia? Because I like to go into that.
Yeah, I wasn't really the best student in high school. I don't even think that I graduated with a 3.0, honestly.
Like average.
Yeah. But I started coming around in my later years, and really like my senior year in school. And that kind of carried me on into college. And I did well in college. I graduated with honors in college, but yeah, it just, you just kind of got to find your way. I've got some.
Colleges, high school, it tends to be that way. And I also want to ask you, Devin, high school, what would you say was your pivotal self-discovery moment in high school?
I think probably when I started reading the autobiography of Malcolm X.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how so? How so?
Well, because
perspective.
Yeah, because that was just, it was that book really was getting into some really serious detailing around Black life in America. And to which honestly I hadn't been really exposed to, like I didn't, even when I lived on the west side of Akron, it wasn't the hood at that time. And, even, so then when I moved away to the suburbs, we moved away to, to Fairlawn, which was, a kind of, ritzy kind of area of town. And, and then, I started going to college. So just kind of growing up in that neighborhood, in that neighborhood where everyone had, at that time, a decent sized house and, and whatnot. And so, everybody was doing well and, but, and I hadn't really, I hadn't really experienced, that part of systemic Black life. And so when I started reading that book, I was like, man, I had so many questions. And like I said, the movie Malcolm X had come out around that time. And that was really like one of my favorite movies. I mean, even still to this day. I remember when Denzel was nominated for the Oscar for that movie. And he lost to I think Al Pacino that year for Sin of a Woman. And Denzel played his ass off. He embodied, it was, man, and I think, for young Black folks at that time, that movie was a very, very enlightening movie. And portrayal of Black life and coming of age and finding your spirituality and what that means to community and how the complicated relationships between mentors and mentees and your brothers in the movement and all of that stuff. It was a very complex movie, and so I think growing up at that time, it was, that was pretty pivotal. There was another pivotal moment in college, but we can get to that. But but in high school, that was really kind of one of the times where I was, quote unquote, waking up.
Yeah. Okay. Woke. Yeah. So you was woke even back then. See? Yeah. Okay. So I get it. And thank you for sharing that. And that is, because just, when you have that moment of reflection, Devin, it's really, Yeah, it kind of takes you there, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah, it does. It
yeah,
kind of,
yeah,
it kind of saddens you in a way, just
yeah,
because, because it's the first, and I'm young at that time, so I don't really know how to articulate a lot of stuff. But when you look back on it, I look back on it and I say, man, that was the first time realizing that I was part of a caste system in America, and now I didn't know what all that was going to mean because I didn't know about redlining and all of that kind of stuff at that time. But
yeah, I just found out about it. I'll be honest with you. I
yeah,
just started. One of my guests, Theo. Just shout out to Theo EJ Wilson. He had to enlighten me about the red lighting. So
yeah. So I wasn't really privy to a lot of the systemic obstacles that Black folks were facing. But you hear stories from my grandfather and stuff like that, because my grandfather was born in 1903 down in Georgia. So he had a lot of, stories and stuff like that of, just kind of, things that he had to overcome. But that was the first time that I really kind of understood just kind of, what was going on.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And you kind of discovered more of yourself then, right? I mean, I would think
I did.
You discovered more of yourself. Absolutely.
I did. And it was, honestly, it was one of those things where I didn't know where that was going to lead. That was the first time that
you're not supposed to. Really not supposed to know. I mean, yeah, you had time for that. You had time to know where it led to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but Devon, let me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, are you I want to make sure that you got all the key takeaways from high school before we transition off.
That was pretty much it. Man, that's interesting because I hadn't talked about that stuff in years.
Oh, good. Okay, so I'm glad I was able to dig that up. See, okay, yeah. So I wanted to ask you, did you go straight to college from high school, or did you? You did. Okay, and what college was that?
It was Ohio University.
Ohio, I'm sorry. You did say that. You said that.
Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. So it's in kind of like the southern part of Ohio. It's about I want to say it's about 45 minutes east of Ohio State University.
Oh, okay. And so, what did you study?
I studied at that time. It was telecommunications. But what was interesting about that was that I didn't really know. I had taken that class in high school, that media class in high school, where I was putting together material for Black history and whatnot. But I didn't. Yeah, but I didn't. That was the first time where I was like, well, I think that I want to go to school to do this. Right. So that was when the bug really kind of got me. But I had already applied to Ohio University, before then. And I had declared my major as business because my dad was a business major down there. And so I was just like, well, I guess I'll be a business major too. Right. But not with any real purpose. So I ended up because of my grades. Like I said, I didn't graduate with a 3.0. I graduated with like a 2.7 or something like that. And so I didn't get into the business school. And so they put me in general college. They accepted me into the school,
which is good.
They
that way.
Yeah, they accepted me into. It ended up kind of being a blessing. So then I had to. So then I was just in general. I was just in general education. With just kind of like a major that was non-declared, and so I studied. And so I went and explored, trying to see, all right, can we get, how can I get into do what it is that I want to do? Well, they had a
film. What did you want to do? What did you want to do?
So I wanted to do film. I wanted to study film.
So at that time, so why? Okay, so pause right there because I want to know. Now we get into some meat and potatoes here, but a little bit of gravy because I want to know why, I need the why to what made you decide that you wanted to do film at that time. Because I know you said being the only child, you had an imagination. So, so how did you really know that that's something you really wanted to do?
Well, I think that what it was that, you know, when I heard music, especially the type of music that my dad and I were listening to, and my mom, really. I mean, everybody that I named, my mom, liked too. Kind of, you know, I would always see images, and I always loved soundtracks, right? I always
Yes.
loved music with images, and I
Okay.
always felt that always told a complete story. And so when I got to when I took that class in high school, I was able to put images with music that I thought was very fitting to bring out that emotion in those images.
You was doing music videos.
Yeah, pretty much. And I absolutely enjoyed that. And I was like, man, this is really kind of like what I want to do. And so I love being able to just craft, kind of, little stories like that. Now, this was back in a time though, where there wasn't really any digital, right? So,
Right.
Making stuff, was kind of hard. In high school, you had the VHS tapes and things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, you couldn't really, it wasn't like today where you could, make a whole situation with your phone.
On your phone.
So, right. So I wanted to go to film school. And so there were some great Black folks in the film school down there at that time. So what I ended up doing was, I went and I explored that, and I found out that you had to be a graduate student in order to do the film program down there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's so far ahead.
Yeah. And it was considered one of the top schools in the nation because of access to equipment. They had a bunch of film cameras, CP16s and Bowflexes and stuff like that, little wind up, film cameras and stuff. And so you could get your hand and lights and everything. They had a lot of production equipment down there that you could get your hands on. And so, I wanted to get in there and I couldn't. And so I had to do the next best thing, which was to do the video portion of that. And at that time it was the School of Telecommunications. And that's what I did. And so, but I had to apply to get into the school. And so since I was already in college, I had to have letters of recommendations from professors that were working with me. So I didn't get in my freshman year. I couldn't. So I had to be down there for the first year and get letters of recommendations, take tests and all kind of stuff, present that to the school. And then the school would make a decision on whether or not they were going to allow me to get into the school. The college was going to allow me to get into the school, and they did. And so from there on, I started, that was the start of really, the career that I have today. So
okay, yes, and okay, and we love that too. So now with that experience of being able to own your craft, even though you had to go through some loopholes, you had to go through some loopholes, but you was able to own your craft. What was a pivotal moment you was about to talk about in college?
Yeah, so well, that was, so then there was a professor down there. His name was Jeffrey Ray. We called him Jeff, and Black guy, very, very extremely smart. He was in the film program. He was a TA in the film program down there. And he had come to, so it was a graduate program, right? So, he had been down there, he had kind of come back and, he had lived in Kenya with his family for a little while. Then his family, moved back to Athens. And so he, his wife Tama was a teacher there at the university as well. And so he was in the film program. And so my freshman year, he taught a class called Black Media.
Okay. Black media.
And this was the first time that I saw the intentionality of how Black folks were portrayed within different mediums. And that was very, very alarming to me. It was very educational, and it completely changed how I saw it completely changed how I saw business. You know, in the way that, you know, they just in terms of how big business saw Black folks, you know, for their entertainment, for, you know, mocking, for, you know, saw us as just being, you know, uneducated and, you know, a step up from pets. And it was, and we studied a lot of films, and we studied a lot of advertising in that class. And it was a fantastic class. It really was. And we learned a lot, and it's funny because years later we would still talk about that class, and I still have my college book from that class. Yeah, I know. It's just after all these years, it was just you know, the other thing that I want to say about Ohio University at that time, and this was like the early 90s, you know, they were really engaged in terms of bringing more minority students into the school. And they had a program called Links. And Links was a weekend in the summer where it was a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday where they brought in all of the minority students that were going to attend the fall. And they gave us an orientation. So we took all of our tests, we scheduled our classes, and we got to know each other within that context. And those are the folks that I met in that class are still some of my best friends today. And we carried that all through. And so a lot of us were taking Black media, you know, together. And so we're all kind of gaining this, you know, going through this experience at the same time. And it's really, you know, just, it was really molding us to, you know, become, you know, really informed Black citizens. And, you know, Black and minority citizens. And it was, I loved it. So, you know, years later, you know, they don't have that Links program anymore. In fact, you know, the university has actually done some other things that have, you know, just kind of been, you know, not in the interest of minority students, sad to say. But at that time, you know, there was a real concerted effort to really get minority students down there. And I was just, it was a blessing that I was able to attend during that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you was able to, because I'm absorbing everything that you're saying, and I'm really enjoying the evolution from you getting the support, or getting the, how should I say, the support and the, you know, the presence of, you know, these male figures in your life, from your father, grandfather. Now you have this brotherhood in college, and it's so amazing to me. You know, they don't make them like you anymore. They'll make them like they used to. You know, when it comes to men and a lot of women, you know, they don't make them like this anymore. So this is so refreshing to me. So I just really am glad that you're here in this space right now. You just don't know.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know, it really is. It really is a blessing for me. You know. You know, and it's also a great transition from my interview with Isaiah David Paul, because like he's one of my top interviews. Like I just really was enjoying every moment and every bit of gem, you know, every bit of master class that he gave us. It's just I'm just really loving this. I'm loving this.
It was you know, it was, you know, because I always look at college as just really, you know, probably the, you know, some of the most important years, you know, in my life, you know, without a doubt, because, you know, it's, you know, I have friends in high school, but, you know, it was my college friends that I really kind of, bonded with, and that
Yes.
we stuck it out, throughout these years. And I remember just even in my wedding, every I had 6 groomsmen. There was only one groomsman was or maybe I had 7. One groomsman was my brother-in-law, and then I had my buddy from my old neighborhood in Akron on Peerless, my buddy Vince. But then everybody else was from college. All my ushers were from college. My best man was from college.
The brotherhood.
So it was just,
and that's like one of the main rites of passage where you need your brothers, your pillars.
Yeah.
Is that sacred union. So
yeah.
for them
So
to be,
it was.
Yeah.
It was that experience, and just kind of experiencing that journey with those fellas was really, we were so blessed. There's about 11 of us that take a guys trip from college every year. And, most of us are alphas, but some aren't, and so we go to, we go to different cities to watch the Browns games and stuff like that. But we always reflect on those college days and what it meant to us, and how much of a family we are because of them.
Yeah, and I love that for you guys. And I also want, and I'm glad that you I want to segue into that the fraternity Alpha Phi Alpha. And there's been such a divide these last few years when it comes to the Greek organizations, and they see it as demonic, or they see it as, because my pastor talked about this a couple of months ago, and he explained each of the Greek organizations and the how, and this is just not his words, not mine. And what you idolize, the idols that you look up to, when it comes to the big organizations. And so I want to get your take on that, and people denouncing, from that. And so I want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think with the fraternities and sorority, it's one of the things that, in terms of Black folks within America, one of the things is, and this is probably true in other places, where, there was the slave trade that kind of, took us to different areas, is that, by not having our own language, it really puts us at a disadvantage from a community standpoint, because with language comes history, comes, different stories handed down, comes religion. And so with us not having that, I think that puts us at a very, at a disadvantage from a community standpoint. Right. So with that, you have, particularly the fraternities and sororities, to where it is that you can find community with, like-minded individuals.
Yes.
And I think that is a great thing. People get hung up on, the Greek letters, and, why would you want to, call yourself Greek and all of that stuff. And I feel like that's just missing the entire point of, the organizations as a whole. All of those are great organizations that have stood the test of time. I mean, when you're talking about, 1906, I mean, that is, that was you're talking about brothers in Ithaca, New York in 1906. So that's a very, and to have an organization that is worldwide, at this point, with, brothers that really do great community work. I'm not seeing, because to me, that's the bigger picture. Whether I'm calling myself Greek or not is, I don't know. I don't even know where that conversation goes. So I don't, you know, and I've seen some of the same reels that you've seen of, you know, people saying, you know, well, you know, the only one that I idolize is my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and you know, so I'm denouncing, you know, the my sorority or fraternity and whatnot. And I think like, okay, well, you know, I you know, I certainly, you know, wouldn't get in the way of you and you know, your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, you know. But what I would say is that, you know, at what point did any of these fraternities or sororities say that you had to idolize them? You know, I was never the alpha Devon. I was always Devon the alpha. Like I had an identity outside of the fraternity. And so it's like, I just, you know, the fraternity was a great way for me to meet, you know, like-minded individuals, to share resources, and to just have just a true brotherhood and conversations with, you know, folks that are going through a lot of the same things that you're going through. Right. You know? And so I just, you know, I was always big picture. I was always big picture with that. And so, you know, my dad was an alpha. You know, I'm a legacy down at Ohio University. So we're both from the same chapter. And I just, I've never, you know, even when I'm older now, I just don't, you know, I don't see that. You know,
you don't identify with those perspectives.
Yeah, I just, yeah, exactly. I don't identify with those perspectives. And I'm not, you know, you know, knocking anyone's experience or, you know, just kind of what's right for them, you know, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, you know, that kind of thing. You know, it's just not a perspective that I share.
All right, but well said, Devon. Thank you so much for sharing that perspective, because I always like to get, because I've you kind of similar sentiments from the other guests that I had that were part of Greek organizations, and they kind of said the same thing. And it's more of like a spiritual bond as well. So they did mention that, and you know, they just you know, you represent more of the brotherhood and sisterhood, you know, in that aspect. So you know,
yeah, I mean, because
they'll take away from that.
Yeah, because you know, I mean, who's praying to, you know, I just, you know, who's praying to these Greek organizations? I've never seen anybody get down on some knees and folded hands and pray to Alpha, you know, to help them get through life. I just, I don't know, man. It's just, you know, to me, it's just not a, you know, it's just, you know, again, I just don't share in the perspective.
Duly noted. And so I want to transition into your phase out of college. What did you do straight out of college? Did you you know, started to work like what kind of jobs did you have, you know, to pay the bills, and before you got into your craft?
Well, I honestly, you know, I had some jobs in high school and college in terms of you know, you know, just kind of working, you know, at, you know, kind of the mall and stuff like that, you know. But, you know, it was interesting because when I got into, you know, one of the, my first, in college, my first film shoot was actually on the winter break that we had. So we were on quarters at that time. So we had long winter breaks. And my buddy, his sister was in the film school. And so she was really pivotal for getting me going within, you know, just within that art. And so she was shooting a film up in Cleveland, in East Cleveland. And she was like, why don't you come up and you can stay with me and that was my buddy. And, you know, you can work this film, you know, I'll have you kind of do sound or, you know, kind of be a sound assistant, you know, on this film project that I'm doing. And I was like, okay, great. And that was like the second time the bug hit me, because it was just fantastic in terms of just being able to shoot scenes and work with equipment and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. And so, you know, when I got out of college, because even in college, I really, I was really into what I wanted to do. Like there was never kind of like, a waiver to like, do something else, or like I knew that this is exactly what I wanted to do. So because I wasn't in the film school though, I couldn't take a lot of those classes, but I was able to kind of sneak into a couple classes just to get the knowledge. And then I was able to work on a lot of the film students' capstone projects and thesis projects and stuff like that in terms of doing sound. I was a big sound guy down there. And so, and then, so that was kind of what I was doing with them. And then also too, I was also editing on Avid systems down there. So I did 2 years real heavy on Avid systems. So then when I got out of school, I had all of that knowledge. And so I, there was two things that I knew that there was one thing that I knew I didn't really want to do, and that was news. So I never applied to any news stations. I felt like I wanted to be, I felt like it wasn't creative. I didn't want to talk about shootings, every day or be involved in creating that content. I really wanted to just, I wanted to kind of go a different direction. So, I applied to a couple production companies. One production company was a small production company that really did a lot of Amish furniture commercials and videos and stuff like that, which was
Amish furniture.
About 45 minutes south of Akron, in this really small town called Dover, Ohio, and Torelli's Video. And so that was like my first job, coming out of college. But I didn't get that job till I graduated in like June or early June. I didn't get that job until like October, November. And then I had applied for an editing job up in Cleveland at this company called Cinecraft Productions. I didn't get that editing job, but they brought me up and they said, "Hey, do you want to be an intern here? We can try you out for 90 days. And I said, "Okay, cool." So I was either going 45 minutes with traffic up to Cleveland or a strong 45 minutes down to Dover, every day when, with those two positions. The Torelli Video thing, there was a bigger production company up in Cleveland. So I was seeing just kind of like where the gaps were with the one company that I was working for down in Dover. So I ended up leaving there and ended up getting a full-time position in Cleveland. They tried me out on some editing and stuff like that. They saw that I had a pretty strong background in that, but but really they put me on in the back room, making labels and VHS duplications at that time, and getting those ready to ship out for a lot of the projects that they were producing. So I did that for a few months, then I ended up, really becoming a powerhouse there and producing and directing, a lot of their jobs. It got to the point to where at one point, their demo reel was about 80% of my work. So it was 80% of that demo reel was my work. So anytime a big project came, with that company, it was, they were putting me on.
You was put on. Okay.
Yeah. And I was the only Black person, at the time. And I want to say that I was the first Black hire there. They were, that company had been in existence for, a number of years. I'm talking about like 1940s, 30s type of thing. And so I ended up, like I said, there weren't, if there were a couple before me, it was very, very few, if any.
Far between.
Yeah. So, but it was a family-owned company, Neil and Maria McCormick, and they were kind of like, a real conservative couple too. like real conservative. It was a conservative company. It was a real, you know, they were a real conservative couple too. But, you know, they ended up taking a liking to me, and you know, I considered them, you know, kind of, you know, my parents outside of my parents.
Right.
They really had a strong hand of raising me within the
Right. Within the industry,
you know,
yes.
within the industry. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, without a doubt, you know, and I call them on all the major holidays, even to this day.
No,
And I call them on I call them both on Mother and Father's Day.
that's wonderful. And I'm glad that you still have that connection with them. So
Oh,
let me
absolutely, yeah.
ask, Devin, so what was the first film you did or directed?
The first one that oh man, what was the first film that I directed? That's a really good question. You know, I had always done a couple projects and stuff like that, you know, just throughout the years. I started out as an editor, so I'm an editor by trade. So
Oh,
you know,
okay.
I kind of fell into directing kind of later on in my
Oh,
career.
okay. Oh,
And
gotcha.
doing, you know, little projects and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I was a editor, you know, really an editor by trade
Yeah.
for a number of years. And I worked at Cinecraft for, you know, on and off for about 15 years. And so, you know, I basically, you know, I don't know, me being a control freak. So basically what I would do is we would go out and I would shoot and I would direct all of those projects, but then, you know, I was editing them too, you know, putting the story together and whatnot. So that was my, that was my life there for a number of years until I went on my own. And I did a lot of the same stuff, but yeah, you know, I think probably some of the narrative work that I've been doing, you know, is probably within the last maybe not even 10 years, you know?
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So I just,
right.
you know, and I think that was the right move because I you know, I know a lot about how the process works, you know, just even behind the scenes. I know what problems to expect. I know how to solve a lot of those problems, whether it's in the field or whether it's on set or, you know, within the edit. So I you know, I have that eye for how I'm going to put the story together because I can edit it in my
Yes.
mind.
Very
So,
important.
you know, it's just, yeah, that's just years of experience and just in terms of just kind of working all of that stuff out. But there was a project called Misfire that I did back in 2020. That was a narrative film that's on Tubi as well.
Okay.
And that I, you know, directed and was one of the producers on. And that was very that was a good project, and that, well, you know, that really kind of stretched some limits and whatnot. So, you know, that comes to mind. There was another project called Toxic that I did for
Yeah, I remember.
that I did for
Yeah, I know seeing that.
for a group of that was a Cleveland based organization, and that project was really good because there were a lot of medical organizations that really took that project on, and they showed it to a lot of their staff throughout the country.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that got a lot of play, you know, dealing with particularly Black women and infant mortality.
Yes, and that, oh God, that is so important. Yeah, so I'm glad that you was able to put that in the forefront.
Yeah.
But I want to get more into your company here, STIMUFilm. Did I pronounce it correctly?
STIMULI film.
STIMULI film. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm
STIMULI film.
sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yes.
that's fine.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
can we get into, you know, all these here, you know, like you have many different services from commercials, corporate narrative stories, and, you know, you kind of have your hand in all of this.
Yeah, I you know, that was the one thing which was a blessing working at Cinecraft, was that they really taught me how to deal with clients. And so when I went off on my own and and it was nothing bad that happened at Cinecraft or anything like that. I think it was just a growth period for me. And when I went out on my own, I actually started STIMULI with a buddy of mine, Khalil Pedesai. And he, you know, didn't necessarily want to do the whole company thing. So I just kind of took the name over and just kind of grew the company into the business that it is today, the agency that it is today. And so I've worked with, even in my time at Cinecraft, I worked with a lot of corporate clients, so I knew that talk. And there was a guy by the name of Rob Meyer that worked at an AV event company, that when they would do these AV events for clients, for corporate clients, they would often need video. And so he would call me to do the video, and then I would just retain that client on the video side. And that's how I built a lot of my book of business. And it was great because I really was able to work in a space and be very blessed and really be, one of very few Black folks in Cleveland doing this level of media production. And that's how I got, one of my biggest clients, Howard Hanna, which is a real estate company. That's how I was able to get them, Rob had called me saying that they needed some video work, and that down at the convention center. And so I remember I was sitting on the couch, and this was just kind of coming out of the mortgage crisis. And so, there weren't a lot of jobs out there. I just went out on my own. I was struggling financially and whatnot, thinking, man, it's the wrong move. And so I went to, and so Rob had called me. He said, hey, what are you doing? I said, man, I'm just, hanging out, he said, hey, do you think that you can come down here? Because I have a client that needs a video by tomorrow morning. And I said, yeah, I guess so. What's going on? He said, well, just come on down here and then we can talk about it. And so I went down there. I talked to the creative director. Her name was Shannon Barr. And she said, hey, look, I need a smiley face video to show at 9 a.m. tomorrow, but I need it all shot today. And today and tonight. And I said, okay, I guess I can do that, And so I started, filming, I started, videotaping, just a bunch of folks and folks having a good time. It was a big real estate conference. And so I ended up, so I shot everything, edited it all night, and then delivered it to him by 8 o'clock the next morning. And I stayed at the convention center. I never went home. And so I went into a room. The janitor was like, hey man, you okay? And so I went into a room. I was editing, and I turned it in by 9 o'clock, by 8 o'clock the next morning. And that was a $5,000 job, at the time, right? And from that $5,000 job, I was able to, turn that into a 6-figure client. And so,
wow, that is awesome.
And so I've been working with them for the past 12 years.
Wow, that's amazing. And so make sure you check out all of Devon's projects, all of his work. All of his information is going to be in the description box, and so please make sure that you check him out and make sure you support all of his endeavors. So I want to get more into, I want to get more into your family business. I'm getting on into business because I want to know, how did you end up with this beautiful person right here? How did you get this woman right here?
Yeah.
How did that happen, Devon?
We actually went to high school together, and
okay.
She's a year below me. We were.
Yeah, it looked like I got married yesterday. Look how young I am.
I
Look like I got married yesterday.
That's my wife Tiffany, and we've been married. We've been married for 23 years this year.
Awesome.
So we've got 2 kids, Isaiah and Ian, and that's my youngest son right there, Ian. Man, he looks even different today than there, man. Yeah. So, it's been the family thing has really been a blessing, and Yeah, Tiff looks really pretty right there.
Oh.
Yeah, the family thing has really been a blessing, and you know, we've been through some things and whatnot, just in terms of family loss and different challenges within the marriage and stuff like that. Just like no different than any other couple,
Right.
but raising kids, maybe not always agreeing on how to do that, but
Absolutely.
but man, we have learned so much about each other as a family, and I think that's a very, very I think it's an inseparable bond, actually.
Yeah, and that's a separable bond. Yeah, that's so.
Yeah.
But I mean, real quick, Devin, now that you see, okay, I'm gonna just kind of challenge you real quick. I
Sure.
want you to kind of pour into. No, that's not the picture I wanted. Where'd it go? Where'd it go, Devin? But anywho, I want you to pour into just from the your wedding photo until present day. I want you to kind of speak life into your wife right now, to where you were back then and where you guys are right now. Can you breathe life into her right now?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, because we got together when we were, pretty young. So, our oldest son was.
Excuse me, Devin. You supposed to be talking to Tiffany, not me. I said breathe life into Tiffany.
Well, okay,
I didn't ask you all of that.
Right.
I said breathe life into Tiffany from where you are then.
Yeah.
And where you are now. Yeah. That's what I asked. Come on.
That's what you asked. Yeah. No, I would say to my wife that, it's been, one, hell of a journey thus far. And we are, and she knows that I'm continuing to look forward to what it is that we're doing next. We've had so many great life experiences together. And, the one thing about my wife is that she's very kind. She's very gentle. She's she's been a terrific wife. She's been an absolute, model mother. And I think that what we have built and how we continue to grow within each other. And it's not always easy. So let's not sugarcoat that. But I think that, looking at the long-term goal in terms of what we want to do, I think I couldn't imagine, doing anything else without it. It's funny because she asked me just the other day, she said, can you imagine if, we hadn't got, together? And it's like, I really can't, because I can't imagine that, because I've had so much life. I told her, I said, I've had so much life with you that I don't know, I can't imagine enough, because the only life that I know that I've experienced is my adult life has been with you. So I don't know what, another life, would have been, or could imagine that. I know the life that I've lived with you, has been an amazing one, has been, full of, just, experiences and, doing a lot of stuff and working together to really build, something sustainable for our family. And I just couldn't imagine doing that with anybody else.
And I love that. And I did that for a reason, because I think that a lot of times we just take a moment of reflection, because nowadays, Devin, it's just very, when it comes to talking about relationships, marriage, love, especially within certain ethnic groups, it's becoming more and more transactional. It's becoming more and more.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's becoming more and more of, ulterior motives. It's becoming more and more about what you can gain from it, and it's just not as of substance any longer. So when I hear what you're saying and the way that you describe your marriage, that hopefulness that you have, that you describe, that's why I kind of took it there, because I just wanted to just kind of send a reminder out there that that is still it's some glimmer.
Yeah,
There's some
absolutely.
glimmer out there.
Yeah, well, to your point though, I think that that's a very important point that you made in terms of the transaction, because I think people start looking ahead sooner than they need to, right? So, whether or not, this guy has money, or whether or not, she's, she's gonna just, do what I say, or whatever, and I think, one of the things that really builds relationships, in my opinion, is really, it's just those little things that you guys do. If you guys are, you find a meal that you like and you're cooking together, or, you're kind of, you're doing something, you kind of, I don't know, you take a drive, or you're sitting in the park together, or, you're sitting on the couch watching, a favorite series that, maybe you both agreed on, and there's a foot rub in there, I mean, it's those little things that really build, how it is that you all start relating and emotionally trusting each other. And, when you don't do that stuff, when you're just, when you're either looking at men as some type of bank, or you're looking at women as some type of objectified toy, then you lose all of the
purpose.
You lose all of that really good stuff in terms of really making that emotional connection. And it just becomes transactional. People get out of it real quick. Well, he wasn't, spending enough money on me, or, she gained a little weight, I mean, it's, those kind of things are really, in terms of what society has placed on, what people's gender roles and stuff like that are supposed to be.
Right.
I think that just really does, people in this time a disservice, because it's everywhere. It's all on social media. It's all on podcasts. It's all on, people's, expression of,
right.
how they think that stuff should be. So, yeah, I just, you really got to get into those little moments.
Yeah. And I thank you for that. And it also, you also representing, your lineage, of
absolutely.
those people in your life that really has, it appears that had a major impact and was able to instill those type of values in you. So yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, but I also wanted to, before I get into this segment that I enjoy with my guests, I just wanted to just let you know, like I said before, how honored I am to be in presence of, because like I reflect on this all the time when I'm, when I reflect on, my channel. I've been doing this for a little over a year. I just celebrated a year this past May. Thank you. And I just really been blessed to just be in the company of being the presence of such amazing people. And the fact that you're actually, that's why I said I still fan out when I see the works of you guys, especially a lot of creators or those unsung heroes. So I talk to other people as well, sanitation technicians, registered nurses. Like I speak to those people as well, and just highlighting these individuals is an honor for me to do that. So I just want to make sure that before I forget, I want to make sure that I give you your flowers that you deserve.
I appreciate that's what's up. Yes, I appreciate that.
I mean, it's well deserved. I have to.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate that.
We missed to not to do that. So I just want to make sure that you are definitely been a blessing for me this evening. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and you to me as well, man. I appreciate I appreciate you getting on this platform and being able to talk, so that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And trust me, it wasn't easy. I'll tell you that. My mom and other people had to push me to this in front of this camera. I'm still trying to figure out how I did it, but that's a whole other conversation. But in the meantime, Devon, I want to do a little game with you that I like to do with my guests. So it's just a little bit of this or that.
Okay.
Here they come, yo. Here they come.
All right, so Devon, so I'm gonna you like that, huh?
I did like that.
A lot of people do. You're not the only one.
I did like that. Yeah. that was Black Sheep, man. This and that, man. That's some old school right there.
Yes. And I played the heck out of that tape. And I said tape. I'm making myself. I played that tape about the tape.
Didn't we all? Didn't we all?
Yeah, so I come up with some random stuff. You can't plead the fifth. You can't choose both. You got to choose one or the other. This or that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna just start. I'm gonna start being messy already. Toxic or One Faith?
Oh.
I know I started already. I know. I'm sorry. I started already.
Jeez, boy, that is a tough one, man.
I love to stick them. Yes,
oh my gosh, that is a tough one. I'm gonna have to go with I'm gonna have to go with One Faith.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go with One Faith.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So on the Alfredo sauce or tomato sauce?
Oh, Alfredo.
Oh, you like Alfredo? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So surf or turf?
Turf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You said because surf is you gotta you gotta be mindful of what because you don't know what's in that boy. You don't know what's in that.
I just don't do a lot of seafood. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I get it. Yeah, I totally get it. Okay, so the theme song to Family Matters or the theme song to Full House? Be honest.
It's got to be Family Matters. I would say Family Matters. I mean, that's a tough one, but I like Family Matters. Yeah.
Days go by. Yeah. It's a bigger love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like it because whenever I hear that song, it's the posing for me. It's the in action, and then somebody says, "Hey, smile the camera," and then they look. And that's the best. That's the best.
It takes you to the editing, huh? That's what it does.
It takes me to that situation. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Speaking of that, editing or directing?
Ooh, man. Well, man, and that's a tough one too, man. But I love editing, and I've done a lot of life behind this computer, and a lot of life.
You did a lot of
because
life.
editing is extremely tedious, and it takes up a lot of life. But I love being able to craft a story to draw emotions out of people watching it. That is one of my biggest things that I like to do. So yeah.
Okay, now TV or film?
I gotta go with film. I mean, being immersed in that theater on the big screen, man, it's like, I saw Dune 1, because of COVID, on my downstairs TV, and I've got a decent size one, but man, when I saw Dune 2 in the theater, it just didn't compare.
Wow. Okay, got you. Okay, now I'm gonna take you a little bit old school hip hop.
Okay.
Camp Low or Laws of the Underground?
Camp Low.
You said that real quick.
Yeah, Camp Low all the way, man. Yeah, I love that. They were so original in terms of what they were doing. Yeah, nobody else was doing that, and nobody else has done it since. Really, I mean, you could think of Gangstar just with kind of like some of the jazz rap type stuff, but man, Camp Low just had all of the ingredients that just fit so well.
Speaking of jazz rap, okay, you making this easy for me. Speaking of jazz rap, and I just had it too. Oh goodness, who did you mention just now when you associated jazz rap? Who did you mention?
Gangstar.
Gangstar. Okay, yeah. Gangstar or Stetsasonics? Stetsasonic.
Oh, Stetsasonic. Yeah, I love. Oh man.
Yeah, I took you back, right?
Yeah, man. Man, I barely remember any Stetsasonic stuff, man, to be honest with you.
That's what made me think of
but I would probably have to say Gangstar. Yeah, because I did listen to a lot of Guru, and that was a period of time that was my thing,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Mary J. Blige or Faith Evans?
I gotta go with Mary on that one. Yeah, I did one of my earlier projects that I did in college, man, was I did a Mary J. I did My Life, My Life, My Life.
Oh,
I did that
you
and
reimagined it?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, you did. How did you know? Go ahead. You was about to say something else.
No, that was it. No,
Oh,
that was
that was it.
yeah,
Okay.
yep, yep.
Oh. Okay. So, candlelight. Okay. What would you prefer? We're just talking about like just nowadays, candlelight or LED light. Like, okay, let me just set the scene. It
Yeah.
don't have to be either whether it's candlelight dinner or like, just relaxing, or just, would you prefer the LED candle or actual wax candle?
Actual wax candle. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gotta go. Nothing, those invitations, man. I mean, they're
I
cool
know,
for
but it's
what they're
hard because the
cool for,
LED, they
man.
last longer. You just turn it off and on, it lasts a little longer.
Yeah, man. But how often are you doing candlelight? You know what I'm saying? So just get real candles,
Yeah, all right, that's true. But you'd be surprised though, how often.
I'm sure. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to fuss with it.
Okay, so Fubu or Iniche?
Oh, Fubu.
Okay. Wow,
Yeah.
you said, wow, you just really,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm trying to stick
Fubu.
you again. Okay, so Monopoly or Trouble?
I like Monopoly. Monopoly. You get in more fights with Monopoly.
Wow, I thought that would be more like Spades to me.
With spades, that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother thing. That's another beast. I know.
That's a whole nother level, man. Where
right.
I associate spades as like international soccer or football. You know what I'm saying? Like those crowds. I associate spades with that level of intensity. Where goalies have, kind of like, where they've got like these hits on them. If they let a ball go by or something like that, man. Yeah, it's just I just think spades can just get really intense.
Noted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you this now. Have you worked with many people in the Tubi space? Because I'm gonna try to see.
I haven't, not really. I mean, I in terms of titles that I've directed, I think I've got like 3 on there. It's probably a couple more are coming, but okay. Yeah, I've just on the distributor side, I've done a lot of just on the distributor side, I've worked with a lot of people, from that standpoint. But yeah, and just in terms of people that are popular on Tubi, I've only worked with a few.
Okay, so I want to just establish that, because I want to make sure if I'm putting it out there, I want to make sure you're familiar with both things, or I'm familiar with what I'm talking about. So that's how I said. So yeah, thank you for letting me know. All right, so I'm just like talking about my last one. Nikes or Adidas?
Nikes.
And one more. Self-Destruction or Fight the Power? Self-Destruction by Boogie Down Productions or Fight the Power by Public Enemy?
I would have to do it. I would have to do Self-Destruction. Yeah, I would have to do Self-Destruction.
Yeah, all right. Good day. Self-Destruction.
Yeah, it had too many names on it. You know what I'm saying? It was just
heavyweights. Yeah.
But what was the West Coast one? Was it We're All in the Same Gang or something like that?
Yeah. Oh wow. Yes.
And Digital Underground's part on that song, man. One of my favorites.
Now I gotta listen to it when I'm on my. Okay. Now thank you. I'm gonna listen to that.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I haven't. Wow, it's been years to listen to that, but I just thank you so much. So I have 2 final questions that I like to ask before we wrap up here. So now the one that I like to ask here is, if you have 5 people, opportunity to have 5 people at the CDA table, dead or alive, who would they be and why? And I need the why for each person.
Wow. Dead or alive? Well, I would definitely do. Man, that's tough, because I'm not.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not a big celebrity guy, just in terms of just kind of, I would say my dad. I would say my dad, my grandfather.
But what about why your dad? Why your dad?
Just because he's just such a part of me. For a long time, I just felt very, very lost without his company. And it really took me a long time to work through that. And my grandfather, because, he had such a hand in raising me, that he was so wise with only a 6th grade education. But he was extremely smart. He started his own wallpaper business after Goodyear let him go. He so definitely those two. I would say probably Malcolm X, just from a life experience. I would say I would put let's see, who else would I put on there? Man, just some thinkers, dead or alive. So that's 3. I would put my old boss, Neil McCormick, the conservative guy, because he, we may not agree politically, but boy, he is a very, very smart individual. And I would say the last person, I would say would be, man, who would the last person be? Man, that's a very complicated situation. I don't know who that last person would be. I don't know if I can name that last person. Probably, man, I don't know. Yeah, I got that. All that's covered. I would probably, I think for the entertainment, oddly enough, would probably be Quincy Jones. Those would be my 5. And I think that would be a good, and all of those are very selfish for me. You know what I'm saying? But those would be my 5. Because I actually met Quincy and did an interview with him. He had hurt his shoulder, and he couldn't come into town for a book, for like a book talk. He was doing a tour and he couldn't come into town, so I had to go out. They flew me out to his place in Bel Air, and I was actually at his house, and
that is insane.
And I got him I interviewed him a little bit and then got him to say a couple things to camera. But we didn't really get a chance to really talk, that much. And so I would have loved to. We talked a little bit. And he was great. He was great too. Yeah, and it was great too, because I didn't really even, miss the opportunity. I had a bunch of material there to give him and stuff like that of my work, and hoping that we could work together again. But he had just come out with his it was the book Q, and he did it. My dad was a huge Quincy Jones fan, and so he personalized it for my dad and whatnot, and I was able to give it to him for Christmas.
Oh, that's amazing.
That was great. So so those would be my 5.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Yeah, see, I know it's hard, but it could change tomorrow, Devin.
It could. That's how you got me talking about all of this kind of stuff, man. So that's kind of those are who were on my mind here in the front. So
yeah, I love that. I love that for you. Yeah, I love that for me too. Yeah. See how that works.
Absolutely.
So here's my final question is, I take this from the late James Lipton from Inside the Actor Studio. So Devon V. Collins, when you enter into the pearly gates, what would you want God to say?
I would want him to say that I made a concerted effort to show Black people on the screen in the best light possible.
Well said. I like that one. I like that response. And so, you have any final words for us, Devon?
only to just say, you know, I so appreciate the invite. I really appreciate the amount of time given to my story, and you know, I'm really humbled, you know, to be asked to do this. So I don't look at any opportunity as a small opportunity, and I appreciate you, your viewers, your listeners, your platform for allowing me to share in this time with you all. You know, greatly,
Yes.
greatly appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, absolutely, and much gratitude to you as well. Like I said before, this has been an awesome experience for me, and I am so grateful that you took the time to do this. And I really hope that you return. You know, again, you know,
Yeah,
to
absolutely. Yeah,
platform.
when we do
Absolutely.
our next iteration of One Faith,
Yeah.
I'm gonna surely
Yeah.
let you
Yes.
know about it,
Please
man, so
do.
I can come back and talk about it.
Yes, please do. Yes,
Awesome.
but in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Devon Collins, please. Please give it up for Devon Collins. God bless. Yeah, God bless you.
God bless you as well. I
All right,
appreciate
have
it.
a
Thank
good
you.
one.
You as well. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you as well. Thank you. Yes, so I just really appreciate that. Was another back to back of interviews that I've really was given. We was given a master class. You know, I don't think of these as interviews. This is more of a master class, and just be able to share so many gems and his being, you know, his journey. And he was so thorough and detailed about his journey as a family man, and how important it is to have positive male figures in our lives. So please, you know, please make sure that you make sure the children out there, for those who have children, single mothers out there, please make sure that you make an effort, an intentional effort to have that presence. I'm not talking about just any type of male presence, because not all male presence is good presence. I'm talking about positive male presence who are intentional and have the best interest of our children. So that way you can have another Devon Collins in the making. So please just make sure that we continue to make sure we maintain that sense of community, and make sure we also maintain the support system that Devon had as well, because look what came out of that. So I just thank him so much for blessing me with it in the platform. So if I don't come up before you before Saturday, I'm going to be in. Actually, I'm going to be blessed with my favorite cousin once again, Greston Weeks. He was actually my first interview, and he's going to be my first repeated guest. So that full circle moment I'm looking forward to. So make sure you tune in live this coming Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when I'm going to be talking to my cousin Greston Weeks. And I'm also going to be that same evening, I'm going to be take you through my next movie premiere event that I'm going to be a part of. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So again, thank you so much for being in the presence, whether you was in the bushes or whether you were going to catch the replay or whether you was on live in real time. I appreciate it. And so in the meantime, just make sure you do what my girl Tamara says, and comment and share. Don't make you aware. Faith is the substance. Have a good one.